So in terms of announcements, just to be able to observe the fact that we are meeting on Dr. Martin Luther King Day. We realize that it is a holiday, but it's also a day of service, and our community service we think is important. I wanted to point out to folks, if you hadn't seen it already, that the Norwalk Hour, which is one of the Hearst publications, they have an excellent article in there today on Martin Luther King's connection to Connecticut. And it's really fascinating about 2 summers that he spent here as a college student working in the tobacco farms, and his work with a local church and other youth. And basically what happened is that his stay in Connecticut is now deemed to have been very influential in his decision to enter the ministry, and his influence on social justice as well. Unfortunately, that Norwalk Hour article is posted under Hearst CT Insider Access. So if you don't get a hard copy of the paper and you're not an online paid subscriber, you won't be able to read it there. So it's kind of unfortunate. However, in conjunction of recognizing his time in Connecticut and the impact it had on his future, the Simsbury, which is the area that he worked in, is dedicating an MLK in CT a monument or historical event there for him. And so I put the website there if you want to read about it, because it's really fascinating. It's www.mlkinct.org or .com, I'm sorry. Okay, some of this, we may have had this in our email, but this is hot off the press from yesterday from Steve Kleppen. The Norden public hearing that we thought was going to be for the week of the 25th, for next week, has actually been moved to February. And we're not sure yet if it's going to be early February or mid-February. They're still working out the timeline between our commission, the applicants, and the attorneys for the intervener, which is the Sasquatch Hills group, as you know. So we'll keep you posted. I'm hoping to at least find out from Steve Kleppen tomorrow when City Hall is open, if he thinks it's going to be, which week he thinks it could be in February. And then as soon as we know the date for sure, we'll get that out to everyone. And it's really important now that it's been extended again, because we put some other communications and engagement things on hold, thinking it was next week. So ENNA might actually be doing some another rally and some other events that I can tell you about, depending on when this hearing will be in February. Another quick announcement. Many of you know Officer Bruce Lavallo. He was our community policing officer. Whenever he could, Bruce attended our monthly meetings over at the Marvin, and a lot of people know him from the community as well. And he has now moved over to traffic patrol, which means he'll still be, over here. I mean, he's still within community policing, but his full-time role is going to be traffic. And then we're welcoming his replacement, Jamie Wright, who'll be on our new community policing officer. I'm not sure if Officer Wright joined us tonight, but he did reach out to us, and I've emailed him, and at some date in the future, we're going to have him as a guest speaker again for talk about community policing in East Norwalk. Okay, and then we've noticed, and we've mentioned this before, that in city government, the ENNA area, which is basically 06855, is very underrepresented in city government. The Common Council, the Planning Commission, Zoning Commission, various agencies and authorities, all of those departments and groups really impact what goes on in East Norwalk, the future of East Norwalk, and the quality of life in East Norwalk. So we really like to get a push going in 2021 to identify the seats that are vacant now, the seats that are for elected positions, such as the Common Council, because it's an election year, and also seats that are available on agencies and authorities. we'll get that out to folks. And if you have any interest, please contact us, and we'll walk you through the process of submitting a resume, getting you more information about, which of these positions are open, what they entail. The idea is that people would be applying for things that are of most interest to them, or you think most impact our quality of life and development in East Norwalk. Finally, hang on one second. And check this menu down. Oh, can't see that there. Oh, this is just the hold the date. So we are going to definitely hold our community shredding event again. It would have been our second annual, but unfortunately we had to cancel it last year with COVID. But we've booked the date. It's going to be Saturday, April 24th. It'll be in conjunction with Earth Day and Earth Week. And we don't yet know the time or which of the East Norwalk locations we'll be using, but as we get closer to that, we'll let everyone know. Okay. Okay, and a couple quick updates before we get into Norden, just so everybody's on the same page. 93 Winfield, which is the former Bank of America parcel. You probably already know the application was denied without prejudice. It means that they can come back and reapply ASAP. And they are in the process of looking to do that. And they'll be reapplying for the as of right use for the number of units on that parcel, which is 11. I checked today on the zoning site and there's nothing filed yet, but it could come as soon as this week. And just to be aware that as we suspected, the applicant has filed a legal appeal of the zoning commission's decision. So that will run its course and may open up the possibility of having a special permit revisited for 14 or more units. 1 Cemetery Street, which is the Wells Fargo parcel. We were lucky to have Mr. Descala as our guest 2 months ago to talk about future plans there, which the planning stage at this point is very early because no zoning changes have been done there to accommodate what they really have in mind. But we've begun some discussions really in social media and offline with folks about if his goal is to have senior housing, which is kind of for empty nesters that may have, two houses, one up north and one south, that maybe to consider something more that would be like a small senior housing village that's contained within itself, but that has retail and service storefronts as well. Something a little bit more keeping with the center of the East Norwalk Village there. And I think that the Scala is open to working with ENNA in terms of, coming up with some plans that we hope would be, mutually beneficial there. Okay, so Norden hearing. So again, the public hearing is postponed to February. As soon as we have the date, we'll let you know that. We do still need to, we've been told by the Sasquatch Hills Association that they still really need legal funding to pay for the legal representation and the expert testimony. The GoFundMe page is still active. And I think right now they're short about $3,200 towards their $15,000 goal. But it will actually take much more money than that. But, it's a start point for, what they really need. If you go to GoFundMe, you'll see that the tag is Help Stop the Norden Warehouse. And we have that link in just about every email that we send out to you. At this point as well, ENNA will be providing legal and consultant updates via email only to our subscribers. Because we'll be posting videos and things online. We really want to, in terms of our strategy and what's going on with legal defense, we just want to communicate that out to ENNA members who are on our email list. And should have an update on that for you actually this week. And then for tonight, one of the things that we really want to get into is just really going over the list, which you guys have seen a number of times, but also open it up for discussion to see what may be needed to be added for what we need to focus on to get this application defeated, and some of the to-do lists the items on the to-do list that people may or may not have had time to do. And while I'm there, I just want to just reiterate what I just said, that the goal is for our community to make sure that this application gets defeated. We don't have any intention of working toward having it approved with a bunch of meaningless, unenforceable conditions. The point is, within our community, we have over 3,800 households and roughly 8,000 people, albeit not all of them adults. But the key is to have people do as many of these action items as, your family or you can commit to doing. It's helpful with these types of applications to literally not only do everything we can, but also to make sure that City Hall and the Zoning Commission and our elected officials know that we're doing everything we can. And in some instances, honestly, to inundate them with everything that we're doing. So again, I just want to say, if you can, make a contribution to the Legal Intervention and Expert Testimony Fund on the GoFundMe page. If you haven't done these things yet, please add them to your list. Send at least one email into the Zoning Commission. And the goal there is to urge that they deny this application and share your reasons on why. It does make an impact with zoning commissioners when you're writing personal information about how this application would impact you and your family, your property values, etc. If you've sent an email into Mayor Rilling, also send it to Common Councilman Kites and Theodorides. They are the representatives for District C, and continue to ask them to speak out publicly against this use. Submitting letters to the editors. We've seen several come through recently. It'd be nice if we can get 2 or 3 in every week now, leading up to the public hearing. It gets it out in the public domain, and we know that the appointed and elected officials read those letters to the editor. We suggest the Norwalk Hour, Norwalk Patch, and Nancy on Norwalk. And again, the links to those are in our emails. Signing the online petition. Many of you have done that. We're actually up to over 1,500 signatures right now, which is extraordinary. And I'm wondering if we can't hit that 2,000 mark before the public hearing. And I think we can if we continue to push this out there. Just a quick reminder on that, because the way the petition is written and the way it was intended, we only want Norwalk residents to sign this petition. They don't have to live in East Norwalk. They just have to live or own property in Norwalk. Displaying lawn signs has been very effective in getting the word out, because so many people still don't really know about this. And we think it's also making an impact on local officials, because they're seeing them now as they drive, in and around East Norwalk. Right now we have about 10 signs left. But depending on when the new hearing date is, we may have enough time to order another 50 or 100 or so of those, and really start to, kind of flood the community with them. If you haven't already gotten a lawn sign and you'd like one, please email us tonight so they can get you right on the list, because they are so low. And then if you attended our press conference and rally last month, thank you for that. It was a really great turnout. And again, depending on the date of the public hearing, we may hold another one, and it may be in a different location. Another way that you can help, if you haven't already done it, is to distribute flyers on your block or on your street. Kind of just a good old-fashioned way of getting out and making sure that people are on your street that may not be engaged in social media or websites or newspapers are aware of this. We provide the half-sheet flyer for you to print off on your own. If you'd like to do this and you don't have the capabilities to do the printing, again, email us, let us know. We'll do the printing for you and either drop them off to you or you can pick them up. If you have the flyers already and you're still out there doing it, just another quick reminder, Please don't put the flyers in the US mailboxes because we're not allowed to do that. And ENNA could be fined by the Postal Service if we have them in there. And then last but very important is attending and speaking at the public hearings. We had, I think, either 200 or over 200 people at the last public hearing, even though everyone didn't get to speak. But it's really important that we show a large attendance at this Zoom meeting. It would be great to have 400 or 500 people actually logged in, whether you intend to speak or not. And once we have the date, we'll send out the date and the links to everyone. Okay. And then, of course, if people have other action items that you'd like to suggest, we can talk about them when we get into Q&A, or you can email us at info@eastnorwalk.org and let us know. And then, of course, if you're able to, we'd like you to support the legal fund that Sasqua Hills has, because that's really going to be the crux of the special permit opposition argument. But if you haven't done so already, you can also make a tax-deductible donation for ENNA to help us defray our costs and operating costs associated with this. Okay. Don't see anybody from Megan from chat. I'll just say to Megan, is anybody in chat that needs something answered now before we go into talking about the focus?
No, there's no questions right now.
Thanks. So again, you'll find these in our email. In terms of opposing this, it's really helpful if, and we're not telling people, what to do. It's a personal decision for, how much you want to be involved in your, not only the level of involvement, but what you want to say based on, on behalf of your own family. But we want you to be aware of the 6 most applicable cases that can be made for opposition against this application. And most of these have to do with exactly what our zoning commission is looking at, because it's a special permit. Before they can approve that or even consider any conditions, they have to take a look at the impact on the community and use 13 different standards when they're evaluating it. These are 6 of the most important ones that they'll be considering, and it's the ones that we've been focusing on both in our communication efforts and in the legal representation and in what's coming together as the expert testimony. So the first one is air pollution. We put that one as first because it allows Sasqua Hills legally to file as an intervener in this case. Because within the state of Connecticut, you're allowed to have that legal standing, no matter where you are in relationship to the site or the application, based on basically residents' right to clean air, no pollution, etc. That's a really short version of it. But what that allows us to do is, as interveners, the attorney and the experts then really can participate in this process as if it's a legal process, including cross-examining the applicant and the applicant's attorneys. When you're considering air pollution, just know that in the applicant's responses, they focused on trying to pinpoint what they think is the level of air pollution. They don't discuss what the health issues are. And obviously they don't do that because it's not to their advantage to point out the many detrimental health impacts that fine particulates and diesel exhaust have. The bottom line of the conclusion of the applicant's expert from Ty and Bond basically says that because there is air pollution from I-95, and due to the levels of air pollution from I-95, that basically this application has no impact. Their philosophy is if it's already there, then what's a little more? And you can't really gauge this application against another one that may have more or less air pollution. So of course that's infuriating to us. The issue isn't, since it's there, what's a little more? The issue is every time we incrementally add this type of traffic and diesel exhaust and pollution, it's compounding and worsening the situation here in East Norwalk, and we're kind of a little bubble for it. The fact that they completely ignore the health impacts is interesting, and we'll come back with some a lot of facts and data to support why our commission needs to take that into account. Pedestrian and bike safety. I mean, you guys all live here, so basically we've concluded that there isn't any safe route for tractor trailers through the residential streets. It doesn't matter which of the three routes they're designating. There isn't any kind of travel lanes, buffers, or sidewalk widths, crossing areas that make this a safe route for trucks. And again, the applicant's position on that is that because there are tractor trailers that already travel on each of the roads they've identified as access, that they've concluded that the roads are designated to handle limitless tractor trailers. And they think that the width of the lanes and the buffers are sufficient, which of course is ridiculous. Noise pollution, you probably already know by now, the expert they hired is an acoustics expert in performing arts and concert halls. So we'll be questioning, and we've already started questioning the validity of that study. It's important for people to know that you don't have to live right on top of Norden Place or literally on any of the designated truck routes. The truck engines, brakes, reverse beep signals, and downshifting will really be heard through most of East Norwalk geographically, especially when there's, in the winter time when there's not a lot of foliage buffers throughout the community, and there's low humidity as well. As to the site itself, where it's situated may be, it is abutted by I-95 and the railroad, but on all four sides of the parcel beyond that is completely residential. And so all the parcels on all four sides will be impacted by this. Traffic congestion. So with the amount of not just the trucks, but also upwards of 378 or more cars per day in and out of that site based on this use, it doesn't really matter if you live near the highway but the golf course, the beach, on the parks over towards Liberty Square. One way or another, you're going to experience the results of this traffic congestion at every gateway in East Norwalk because of East Avenue, Strawberry Hill, Winfield Street, Old Saugatuck, and Van Zant. There's really not going to be any way to avoid it. And unfortunately, no matter how they think they're going to configure this, the neighborhood center in East Norwalk would literally be gridlock. It only takes one or two 60-foot tractor trailers to literally take up a whole lane from light to light, if you can picture that. We're going to try to do some animated graphics that will illustrate that as well. We'll see if we can get that done before the public hearing. And just so you know, again, the applicant's response is after they've analyzed the intersections that they thought were relevant. They didn't investigate any of the intersections that really impact us the most. But with the ones they did it in a manner that allows them to conclude that there's no significant impact. No surprise to folks who follow these zoning applications. And then property value decline. We know that Farhan and the Sasco Group and others are working on getting some facts and data together on what is accepted in the industry as a typical reduction in property value based on distribution centers, trucking, and other objectionable uses. So the fact of the matter is that we not only have to get this application defeated, you guys, we have to defeat this as quickly as we can, even if we think they're going to come back and appeal this. And the reason is because there's so much publicity about this application, which is a good thing because we want to get the word out there to everyone to help fight this. But the fact is that somebody who's looking to sell their house now, or someone who's looking to, who's considering moving into East Norwalk, is already going to see some, negative publicity out there about the possibility of a huge distribution center coming. So, part of our goal is to make sure that we keep on top of this thing and that we continue to push it along to get it defeated, so that it doesn't impact anybody right now who's looking to move here or anybody who's looking to sell. And then, of course, in the long term, we have to guard against it being approved because our, long-term values of our home are going to be impacted no matter what, just by having this use in our community. And then the last one is just to understand the kind of the collateral damage that happens when you have a land use as a special permit like this one that gets approved. If this gets approved, essentially it ties the hands of our zoning staff and our zoning commissioners to be able to legally deny any other application that follows it. And so we we have it, part of our argument with this is that if they were to approve this, because they felt that this one standalone 300,000 square foot distribution center wasn't going to impact the community in a negative way, which is bizarre. But if they were to do that, the fact remains that the other half of that same parcel, the other 300,000 square feet, could theoretically be applied for as a distribution center the next day. And I don't see any way that they could deny that based on having approved the first one. I'll double check with Steve Kleppen on this, but I also believe that the entire parcel of Norden, which if you've ever driven around it, is pretty big, that if this got approved, it could also be that someone could apply to build a new structure on that property and operate it as a distribution center, unlike this one, which is actually an existing structure. And then the other thing is that if this gets approved, I'm not sure that our zoning commission could deny anyone else who fits the same criteria in any other industrial zone in the city. And by the way, there's at least one other strip of industrial zone in East Norwalk that runs parallel to the train tracks. So it could even impact us here too. Okay, so there's a lot of points to be made on all 6 of those. I just kind of wanted to give people the highlight so your eyes don't glaze over, and make sure people understand what we're still looking for them to do ahead of the public hearing and then in preparation for the public hearing. And hope to get some discussion going on, are there some things we could be doing that you didn't see on the list? Are there things that are on the list that that we've been doing that you don't feel are effective, or any other questions that we can try to answer? If I can't answer a question, I'll get to city staff and get answers back to folks.
There's one question in the chat, Diane.
Thanks. Okay.
It says, I am completely in agreement with ENNA's opposition to this proposal, but I have had people ask me how the city of Norwalk will make up for the money they will lose by denying this petition. How should I answer them?
That's interesting. So I think, by the money they will lose, I don't know if someone's talking about the discussion that's going on now about the past due taxes. Past due taxes are due and will one way or another, they'll get paid and the city will go after them. Or if they're talking about the potential loss of revenue for the improvements to the building on the grant list. So I can speak to that, or they can clarify it. If it's the grand list, mostly we would look for something to be highest and best use that contributes to the grand list, but that doesn't put a drain on city services, things like, like schools and sewer and things like that. So you would think that an increase in the grand list on this parcel would be something good. However, the nature of the business is warehousing and distribution, which means that even though there'd be an increase in the taxes just based on the improvements to the structure and the parcel itself, we're not sure how much of an increase that would be. We don't know if they would appeal, how much of an increase they would have to pay in taxes based on the new value. And what people should know is that unlike residential and offices, uses like warehouses and distribution centers don't get taxed on their the goods that are stored there. They only get taxed on the structures like shelving, and then their office stuff like desks and computers and staplers and all that good stuff. So initially we're thinking there's not a whole lot to be gained from what would normally be a large amount of money in the business personal property tax if this was another use such as offices or residential. I'll do a quick follow-up if that answered it, or maybe that's not even what they were talking about.
They said that they said thank you.
Okay.
And then there's just additional commentary about that money is being poured into the petition, so some should go to taxes, but no direct questions.
Yeah. And the other thing I think the commissioners will take into account, it's not in any of the standards that they would be looking at, but I don't think that they can take into account something that hasn't been projected or can't be relied on in terms of adding to the grand list, because they have to balance the possible addition to our grand list for revenue against the impact on the community. And as they're looking at a community that the majority really is opposed to this, and the impact on what it's going to have on our community in terms of, again, the pollution, the rest of it. And don't forget, though, as they go in, there's a potential for the rest of the property values in this area to start going down. So as the appraisals for properties go down, because people don't want to buy stuff, within a regional distribution area, that's going to lower the grand list on the residential and the business side of it as well. And there's they may not be contributing like to the cost of schools or emergency services and things, but there's certainly, we don't know what the funding would be that would come directly from the taxes on the grand list that would help to cover the damage to our roads from 80,000-pound tractor trailers, 7 days a week on our streets that aren't in great shape right now. Okay. Anybody have their hand raised for a question, comment, suggestion, or in chat, Megan?
There's a chat question. Just scrolled away 1 second. From Connor. And the question is, are we concerned about the current movement of this hearing date? Are we concerned about current format of the P&Z hearings where speakers do not go on camera? Limited amounts of people can speak, and as per precedent set by the commissioner at the last hearing, a resident can only speak on a topic once. So if there are additional hearings, an individual speaker cannot speak again.
Okay. I think I got all four of those, so I'll try. Megan, keep it up in case I missed it. So the timing actually can work both for and against us. There's pros and cons to having this thing extended out. As much as I said before, like we'd like to get a denial and get it as quickly as we can. I think the fact that they've pushed this thing out again actually works in our favor. Because I continue to hear from people. I just heard from somebody last week, in fact, that she's engaged with a lot of people in East Norwalk, and she's been shocked by how many people still don't even know about this Norden application. So in one respect, moving this date out again, even if it's another week or two, still allows us the opportunity to communicate and get people involved. It also allows us to still continue to build up the legal legal defense fund there, and also still allows us to work with the legal folks and a consultant that ENNA has hired to secure expert testimony. So I kind of personally feel that it's working more in our favor. That's my opinion. Yes, the P&Z with planning and zoning and the commission. So we have gone back to the planning and zoning director, Steve Kleppen, and we have raised these points about the inequity in terms of holding these things via Zoom. The governor, when he had originally issued the executive orders around COVID, allowed communities to still make land use decisions with public hearings that are held via Zoom. And it's really unfortunate. Some folks are of the school of thought that we're actually getting more people to engage because we have, based on different demographics, there are some people who simply can't get to City Hall, or get there at 7 o'clock and then sit around for, 2 or 3 hours for a public hearing waiting to speak. So that's one aspect. On the flip side, we have people who don't or really are not computer savvy or have access to to Wi-Fi or to computer time to be able to participate. The fact that we can't be seen on camera is something that we've gone back to Steve Kleppen with to review with the chair of the zoning commission, because we feel it really puts us at a disadvantage. They're able to see the applicant. We're able to see them. They all see each other's body languages. For those of you who have been hanging around with us for a long time, sometimes when we converge on the common council chambers or the concert hall, there is power in people holding up signs, people demonstratively either shaking their heads or nodding. Sometimes they'll let us applaud or boo. It's really important because it gives the commissioners a sense of the, kind of a sense of the crowd of what's going on. And it's impactful to be able to see us. So we have asked Steve Kleppen, and I know others have related to other public hearings in Norwalk, to let the public come on camera and also to be able to share our screens when we have something visual. The same way, if we were in the common council chambers, we'd be able to share something on the overhead so that everyone in the audience and every one of the commissioners could see it. The idea with that is that then people would have the choice. So they would have the choice they could speak and not go on camera. You just, keep your name up there on the screen, or they could speak and go on camera and let the commissioner see their concern, their confusion, their compassion. I mean, their passion for this, all the things that go with seeing people in body language. The limitations on speakers, well, I got to say the last one was really surprising to me, having been at this advocacy thing for a long time. I was very surprised that there was a time limit set, and I understood why Commissioner Schulman was looking to set a cutoff time to be respectful of people, that have families or young children or aging parents dealing with or having to get up to go to work. But the fact of the matter is they should have taken a poll near the end of that through staff. Brian Baker is staff who is the moderator for those, to see how many people were still there to raise their hands if they wanted to speak. Because honestly, at that point, if there had only been like another, 6 or 8 or 10 people and they thought they could be relatively quick, then they probably should have offered to let people do that and do it on the same night. So it's kind of a darned if you do and darned if you don't on that. If you've ever been at a public hearing in Norwalk and they have to stop the meeting at midnight to actually then vote to continue it to the next day at 12:01, that's a long, painful process. So, and then what was the last point there, Megan?
If the speaker can't speak again.
Hmm.
The speaker not speaking again was the last
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, so you can't speak again, and that's pretty typical in public hearings because there's not a back and forth, and it's not intended to be constant rebuttal from the applicant to people who raise new points. Personally, I don't agree with it. It has been the standard for years. I do see it used in other communities, so I'm not sure if it's a state thing or it's a local regulation. But I don't really agree with it. Having said that, though, when a public hearing is continued, and it's not just being continued for the sake of the applicant's opportunity to rebut, if there's going to be any more public comment, they should still allow a person to speak a second time if they're speaking to information that was introduced either too late for them to comment intelligently the first time, or it was introduced after that public hearing. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, it's just, goes with the rules of fairness in terms of having the public heard. So it's interesting someone just put that question in there, because ENNA has been told by Steve Kleppen that he hasn't confirmed yet with Commissioner Schulman if either ENNA will be allowed to make a statement as your organization, or if I personally will be able to speak again. So until they clarify that, and we've been asking for 2 weeks now, we don't know how ENNA as an organization is going to proceed. And even if we're able to speak again and issue the second statement, which we told them we were going to do, it may literally have to be another board member who has to do it, because, for some reason, having the same person speak, it's just bizarre.
Okay.
So I think I got all of those.
Yeah, there's a couple more questions. I think Mary Beth had one from earlier, and then it'll be Matthew and then Sandra. So Mary Beth's question was, when was the project first proposed to city by developer? It appears from the website that the city departments have been considering this application for some time. It seems important to know what it was first proposed.
Okay. So 2 things with that. The applicants themselves have been working on this application for, it's just at 2 years now, or I'm approaching 2 years. So these things just don't appear out of thin air. There's tons of dollars and tons of stuff that goes into it on the applicant side before they even come to the city. And that puts us at a distinct disadvantage, obviously. The actual application, they would have been working with the city for months before they filed the application. But until they file an application, there's nothing that's privy to the public to know about it. And there's nothing under Freedom of Information, the Freedom of Information Act, that allows us to get records for that. It only becomes public, and we only know about it when they literally file the application, literally like at City Hall. And that happened on this one on June 30th of this year. But staff would have been working with the applicant and the, prior to that. I did file an FOI request to get information on who staff met with, when they met with them, which, if any, of the developer partners, applicants, experts, attorneys, etc., had any meetings with the mayor, just so that we can find out, how far this thing went back and what might have been going on in terms of meetings and negotiations before this saw the light of day on June 30th.
All right, the next question is
Mary Beth.
Oh, sorry, Dan.
No, go ahead.
Next question is from Matthew. Matthew, you should be able to unmute.
Hi, Matt.
Can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Yeah.
Well, that's the question I kept hearing at the hearing last time was, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Goes right to the point of not being able to be seen on screen, which I believe is an issue. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Matthew Mandel. I am an RTM representative, which is a representative town meeting in Westport, sort of like your common council. And I represent the people on the west side of Westport, which abuts you guys. And I've worked a lot with Diane and in getting also the Westport people involved in this, because it's really one community down there, south of the train station. It's all one entity. And this is going to affect those Westport residents just as much as it's going to affect you guys. And so we're all involved in this. Westport sent a letter from First Selectman. We got our Planning and Zoning Commission to send a letter in opposition as well. And so we're right there with you. So some of the things in listening tonight, things that possibly could be done. First of all, people who live on Duck Pond, if they could put up signs along Duck Pond to be able to catch all of the Westport people who live in the Saugatuck Shores area as they head up to 136, they would see it and get more involved and sort of start asking what's going on, what is this, and might be able to bring more Westport people in. I was thinking of getting some of them to sign the petition, but Diane, you said keep it to Norwalk. That's cool. No problem.
But Matt, I'll just stop you there though too, because I sent it over to I'm not sure who was in Westport, but if you guys want to copy our petition and do it and do one for Westport folks on iPetitions like we did for the Norden conservation easement,
Okay.
I'm happy to do that, and then that can be submitted on behalf of Saugatuck and Westport residents.
Okay, send that on over. We'll give it a shot. I mean, clearly, it goes to it being moved to the middle of February is to the advantage of the opposition.
Yeah.
Time is the enemy of the applicant, always. And so the longer you can drag it out, the more stuff that you can make it delayed, et cetera, it's better. So something you missed in your pieces, light pollution was discussed by a couple of your people in public at the hearing, talking about seeing the lights, it moving, going on all night long. The lights are a problem as well. That should be added. Their argument of incremental pollution and incremental trucks on the roads and they can't say that this is not a problem is BS. Any increase is a problem. It doesn't matter that it's 5 microns more of pollution. That's 5 microns more of pollution that wouldn't otherwise be there, and that needs to be pushed very hard by you in public. Loss of money that was brought up. That's a canard because Diane, you explained it perfectly. There is no great increase in grand list money from the warehouse. There are not a lot of people who are going to be employed from it. What's coming in, or trucks are coming in, trucks are going out, the stuff is coming in, the stuff's going out. None of it's taxed. So what occurs is you've got more trucks on the road, more expense in fixing the road, more expense in having police have to deal with things, and clearly there are traffic issues and there's safety issues, and that far outweighs any money that Norwalk's going to get from this proposal. Moving forward, you should get people to really focus, besides focusing on the specific issues you outlined, is more personal experience. What was very clear was you already have a massive traffic problem in Norwalk. And some people said just getting 295 from where you are is a problem. Now add trucks that are huge, add many trucks to it. And the more that you get there and you explain your personal experiences, you guys not technically are experts, but are the experts in what's going on. And no matter how many that they pay, $400 an hour to tell you that there won't be traffic, you get 100 people to come up and say, wait a second, there already is traffic. So what's this guy talking about? And that way you dismiss what they have to say and you gain more strength in terms of the commission's opinions. What I thought after listening to the hearing or seeing the hearing was I thought that they were amenable to what the opposition was saying a lot. I felt comfortable with that. That doesn't always pan out in the vote, but I thought that a lot of was gained during that time. The camera, I think not being on camera is a tremendous detriment. They don't see us. Diane, you explained it perfectly. Facial expressions, how demonstrative you are, how much you can pressure. When they get to see the faces of all the applicants, but the opposition is unseen. It's, you're not hearing it. You're not seeing it. It passes the night because it's just words in your ears. I think you really need to press them and saying that we need an equal hearing. If they're on the camera, we're on the camera. You want to drop them from being on the camera, then that's okay. Now, that's not what you really want, but you can press that they're not seen either. Right. It's not a fair situation. In terms of the number of times a person can speak, that's BS. What happens is in a normal hearing is once everybody's spoken once, the chair should come back. Is there anybody else who wants to speak a second time? Because so much has changed in the period of time. I mean, the last hearing was in December. So everybody who spoke in December can't speak again. That's not right. Also, in terms of time limit, There is no time limit allowed in a planning decision. Anybody can speak for as long as they want. And them telling you that there's a time limit is not kosher. It is not within the rules and the regulations of the state when it comes to planning. I know this because I argued for 45 minutes one time in Westport. Why? Because the town attorney told me I could. And every time that the commissioner said he has to stop, the town attorney would say, no, he's allowed to continue. So you must press for that. If someone wants to speak for 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, that's important. One thing I didn't catch, and Diane, you got it, was being able to share a screen, being able to show your argument. You can't. And I think that's a violation of your ability to have a fair and honest hearing. And I think if you present it as that, saying, wait a second, we have diagrams of problems. We have diagrams of traffic. We want to show you where their reports are flawed and be able to show it to them in real time, just the way the applicant shows it to everybody else. I think you got an argument there to go to the planning director and say, hey, we want the same opportunity. And without it, there's a legal challenge that will be coming from the opposition, and really push, because they're not going to want that.
Yeah.
In terms of rebuttal, it's the same idea. Anything that's come up that's new, you should be able to answer.
Yes.
And there's no doubt in my mind that when we come to February, they're going to go to the applicant to start talking again. And the second the applicant opens his mouth, everybody who's already spoken should be able to speak again based on anything that they've said.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Matt. Yep.
I have another issue to bring up, but I can wait on it. It's a more of a global issue that's happening at the state level in terms of local zoning. So let me know when I'll cue you in on it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate that. And I think what you're referring to also, there's a forum that's being held tomorrow night on the 19th on some changes in the state, the proposed legislation having to do with local zoning control. Senator Tony Huang, I believe, is hosting it. So if we have time tonight, we'll talk about that, because I didn't
if you could pass that out to everybody and have them watch that, it would be good. I was already on a Zoom with Tony talking about it. Basically, they want to gut local ability to make decisions. So I don't need to explain more. You got it already. Get people to watch that and understand that this is a serious business, and that they're talking about making TOD a real big deal, where there would be multifamily housing a half a mile from it with as of right. So it will really impact all of the smaller neighborhoods around all of the train stations.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. Yep. And I only didn't send that tonight because I just felt like people would just be like, oh my God, we can't now we can't even deal with that. But I'll send the link, so hopefully people can watch that, and hopefully it'll be recorded so people can watch it at their leisure, because the legislation is starting up now. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Last thing,
Westport support. We're one neighborhood.
Get Bob Duff to understand that this is a big deal, and that he shouldn't just be toting the line here, that he should understand that the people in the neighborhoods really don't want their local zoning gutted. I've spoken to Stephanie Thomas, who now is your representative there, and she's very much on board with the understanding that this is too much. Yeah. So
Gotcha.
You got it.
Yep. We'll have that on our list here. Thanks, Megan. And you know what? Finally I brought up my screen, so I'm able to see some of you, but there's still a boatload of people here. And I do see Officer Jamie Wright there. So thank you so much for joining us. Hi. We'll do, you can see we're consumed with this Norden thing. But there's a lot of, quality of life things going on in East Norwalk. So we're really glad that you're here. We're looking forward to meeting you at some time, in person, and hopefully having you as our guest in the next few months to come and just meet everybody in Zoom and talk a little bit about community policing. Thanks so much for coming, Jamie. Okay, Megan, hands up or?
Yep, Sandra has a raised hand.
You hear me?
Yep.
It's Mike Spohn. I'm at my wife's computer. Yeah. Hey, Diane, how are you?
Good,
hey, just one clarification with the comment about how long this process has been going on. As you know, on my research, I found a letter for the special permit application, January 2018. And that's when we found out that the applicant was willing to pay the back taxes of the owner of the property that's been in arrears for now 3 years. So this thing's been going on as of this month, at least 3 years on paper.
Yeah, that I wasn't sure if it's actually the same applicant or not, like for the for what they were talking about paying the back taxes on the other side of that parcel.
Okay.
I thought it was someone else related to Fortis who owns the entire structure. But if that is the case, if it literally is the same group, then it is 3 years this month. It's well over 2 years, but
Well,
I don't know if I was able
I'll
to
check that letter. It's in
Okay.
that 700-page pendum. So I have a couple questions. One, you just mentioned the zoning commissioner that's going to the state legislator. So do we have a handle on how the vote, what the makeup of the committee will be
or
for the zoning vote? Because Stephanie Thomas seemed like she was sort of in our court.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. Yeah, and I think from the last meeting when this thing was going to be, the hearing was going to be held on the 7th, that Stephanie wasn't even sure of her swearing in date at the state, which turned out to be the 6th, I guess. So she is, even though she participated, because she's not on the commission, she cannot vote. I don't have any information yet from the mayor or from Steve Kleppen on if a replacement has been named, and they would only be, Stephanie was not an alternate, so I'm not sure how that works, maybe moving an alternate over to that position. But they also, I do know that they're not able to vote unless they review all of the transcripts of what was presented in the hearings. But that's a good point, Mike, because I would hope, within the next week or so, we should know that. And I'll see if I can tie down Steve Kleppen to
and
give
then
us
the
a
other
heads
thing
up.
related to one of your bullet points about our unrepresentation or misrepresentation in the 06855 zip code is that if she leaves, do we actually have somebody from East Norwalk on the zoning commission?
We on the zoning commission, no. And actually, Stephanie, even though Stephanie is District C, she wasn't even actually 06855 because she's over on the other side on William Street. So we literally had, in the website, they still never fixed it, even though we asked it to. On the website, they list her as 06855 and she's not. So we literally have no one. So, and that goes for a lot of important commissions. And the agencies and authorities, we need to have people from 06855.
Well, does that make our case more difficult?
For this thing?
Yeah, well, just what we're presenting to the committee, we're the council, and that we have no representation in East Norwalk.
Yeah, I think it would be easier if we did. Part of our argument is always that, neighborhoods that may not be similar, most people have empathy for, I can understand why they wouldn't want this, even though this could never happen in my neck of the woods. So I don't think it impacts it to the extent that people think that it would, or at least I hope that it wouldn't.
All right. So I have just one more quick unrelated question. How much should we focus on? We have those points of noise and pollution, but if we don't actually know who the tenants are, we can only assume that those noise levels are probably, their noise level is probably on the low side. So how much of a plan of attack should we be that they don't know who the tenants are?
Well, and you know what? I should add a 7th point to that right now, because one of those, and maybe it's just so obvious to me all the time, I forget to put it on there. One of the main crux of why this thing should be denied is that they haven't given us any indication of the tenants. They only know for sure that it's going to be 2. And so it's hard to do an evaluation one way or another on what the impact is unless you know the nature of their businesses. Right down from knowing what they're distributing and what impact that has. And what the operation of their business is going to be based on the nature of their goods. And that's an argument right there unto itself. But the noise and the pollution really go to the number of trucks. And to your point, though, Mike, without knowing the businesses, they, as much as they can't say it's 200, they can't say that it's not 400 trucks either.
Right.
Without
So
without knowing
I think that's a serious, line of attack.
Yeah, it is, and we've been bringing it up at every opportunity that we have. I don't know if Matt Mandel is still on here, but the first selectman of Westport actually raised that as a very serious concern, because he I think he put it in the terms of our zoning commission being in the unenviable position of making decisions on stuff you don't have. It's not an informed decision. You just don't know. The flip side of it is, because we always try to be fair in the ENNA, the flip side of it is, if it were another application, say for a mixed-use retail structure, you wouldn't have to identify who the retail tenants could be. They apply on their own in terms of tenant permits. And so I know that they'll use that argument that says, well, the tenants will still have to apply on their own, but that doesn't do us any good in evaluating it. And
Right.
if they think, it could be 200 trucks, and we can just come back and say, well, it could be 500 trucks, because you just don't know the nature of the tenants.
Right.
And you don't know, again, the nature of the goods. Other people have raised it as too, that we don't know if some of them could be hazardous materials. We don't know if they're things that are, odorous. We don't know if they're things that are related to perishable goods, which also brings on odors. It can bring on rodent issues, all kinds of problems. It requires refrigerated trucks so that you hear the compressors running, etc. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Mike. We're at a great loss, so we'll continue pushing it.
And the idea of not knowing who the retail, the normal retail tenant is their business is usually fairly benign.
Right. Yeah.
Distribution runs the gamut of hazardous chemicals, big bulky construction supplies, perishables. So
yeah.
I think not knowing in a distribution center business, they know who it is.
oh yeah, of course. Definitely, of course they know, and they're not going to tell us. And we also don't know from the nature of it is, how regional these things are. Occasionally, the two partners will bring up things like it's distributors that supply plumbing supply houses. We have 3 plumbing supply houses, I think, in this area. So how many trucks? You're going to use, 150,000 square foot of one side of a warehouse to supply plumbing supply. So that would lead you to believe then it's, completely regional, like tri-state, and, buku trucks in and out. So it's, anyway.
Right. Okay.
Thanks.
Great.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Diane.
You're welcome.
There's a text question, Diane, from Nicole. She says, someone told me the applicant is advertising jobs on Facebook. Is this true? I can't seem to find it.
Okay. I would love if someone could find that and get that to me, because that would, continue to speak volumes to the, the character and arrogance of the, the applicants that we're dealing with here. We did point out early on in this process that one of the 2 partners on their own website had this thing fleshed out as part of their portfolio for leasing to tenants. And we thought he was taking it down, but someone pointed it out to me the other day that is still up on his website. And they said with the anticipation of it being approved by the end of the year, meaning 2020. So if they are in fact actually actively, recruiting for something there, I'd like to see that, just so that the zoning commission is aware of it.
Okay. There's another question in the chat from Mary Beth. I guess it's more of a statement. How many experts do we have among East Norwalkers who have signed the petition? Experts in engineering, traffic, public health, particulate matter. We should encourage our experts to speak.
So from the petition, it's hard to tell, because unless people put in comments, there's a lot of names in the petition that aren't really relevant to us, except that they live in Norwalk. However, from the hundreds of letters that were submitted to City Hall, that we get a packet of every week regarding this, we have stumbled across a few letters of people who are in industries that are able to speak to this stuff intelligently. There's at least 3 that I saw that I think would be considered as people that would be admitted as experts. But it is a process to go through, and we really need to do it. I think Farhan is on the call too. We really would need to be able to talk to those people then to come in and be qualified as experts through the intervener. So it's part of the legal process. But there were some compelling letters. If people want to read all of them, I think I've sent out all but the last batch. I can send everything again. If people want to read through them and see what some of our own residents have said, people who have been in these types of industries and who know what they're talking about. And they will be speaking if they didn't at the first one, they'll be speaking at the second one. And the letters that they submitted go to each of the zoning commissioners. So they have it, and they are instructed to read every letter. The idea with zoning, I know Matt can speak more to this because it's a legal thing. The understanding is that every voting zoning commissioner is privy to the exact same information, that no one commissioner has, any more or different information than the other person. And they are all supposed to read each of the letters. So I don't know if Farhan, I had, before we go to the next one, Megan, Farhan, I'd mentioned, I don't know if you were in at the beginning of the meeting, but I had mentioned that anything that's an update in terms of either the legal representation or the actual expert testimony, we would not be reviewing in our live meetings because we post these, and we would be giving updates as needed via email only to people who are on the email list. But if there's some kind of like a baseline update that you want to give from Sasqua Hills as to how that's progressing. Everyone,
Hi,
this
everyone.
is Farhan Memon from Sasqua Hills, who organized the legal defense fund and the attorney for everybody.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm poorly lit, but my lamp is somewhere else right now. I would just say that, we're going to be turning in, at least the plan is, our initial set of expert letters tomorrow. I think that Steve Kleppen has been quite eager for us to submit it. And although I haven't spoken to him or to Joel, obviously, since last week, I would suspect that the delay in the hearing is probably due to the fact that we haven't submitted our documents yet. And quite frankly, I think the reason we haven't is because it takes some time to put these things together in a way that's persuasive. I mean, the applicant has had 2 years to work on this project and has spent hundreds and thousands of dollars doing so. It would be unreasonable for us to put this together over the holiday period or to rush it. So hence, we've been telling the experts to, take their time. But, as Diane's probably mentioned to you, we have hired an environmental guy, a sound guy, I should say the environmental expert is a woman who lives in the area, Devki Desai, a sound expert, a traffic expert, and we're working on the valuation expert as well, although that's a little tricky because the methodology that they use involves using paired examples, and that requires a fair amount of research, so that's quite not baked yet. One key aspect of this I would highlight is that the applicant has classified this warehouse under the transportation engineering guideline of 150, which is like sort of your vanilla warehouse. And we disagree with that. We believe that based on the structure of the warehouse, the fact that there are 19 loading bays and the size of the warehouse, that there's a better classification for it, more what's called a high cube warehouse. And there's several different types of high cubed warehouses. And those high cubed warehouses, even the lowest sort of version of it, has many more truck trips than the 150. That's trip generations that have been set for the 150 classification. So that, of course, has a downscale or downstream effect on all of these aspects that we're talking about here, right? If you up the number of truck trips, then you end up with more pollution, more traffic, potentially more devaluation of properties, more environmental damage. So I think our, main thrust is to say that, these applicants are downplaying, everything, and not really giving a fair representation of the type of facility this is going to be. And not to mention also the fact that we're only talking about half the facility here, right? So, there is a potential after this is approved that they're going to expand into the rest of the facility, which means take the worst case scenario and double it. There doesn't seem to be sort of any mechanism within the zoning bylaws to sort of either, prevent that from happening or to, attach meaningful conditions that would prevent that from happening. So I think that sort of gives a general flavor, I think, of where we're headed and what we're doing. Obviously, you'll be able to read the output, I'm hoping, starting tomorrow, and when the commission makes the letters public.
Right. Yep. And as soon as it actually gets presented to them, it's public record. So even if they don't post it on the website, we can request to get it so we can get it out to everybody immediately. And then we'll also get it to the ENNA because ENNA hired a consultant too as well to kind of be a sanity check on all of this and to use some techniques that they've used around the country where they've been successful in having these types of applications defeated.
Sure.
Thanks, Farhan. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Dan, for all you do.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, there's one more, or there's another chat question and then a raised hand. The chat question is from Mike, and it's how much has Matthew contributed to our effort?
What's that say again? How much is who?
How much has Matthew contributed to our effort?
I'm not sure what that was. You mean from Matt from Westport, or?
I assume it was the Matt that was just talking before, but I don't know if they mean monetarily or effort-wise.
Yeah, I'm not clear on the question. So the beyond the two letters that have come in, there were also some individual letters that came in from Westporters and there's at least one planning and zoning commissioner who she has been active on her own as a resident who's been pursuing this. And some of we definitely had Westporters who wanted signs, and when we had oodles of them, we did give the signs to the Westporters too on the routes where people travel through into Norwalk. So no, I wouldn't put anybody on the spot monetary because it wasn't anything that we coordinated with Westport. If Matt's still on and he wants to answer that, I'm not quite sure what the.
Okay, I think we can move on to the next question, and the asker can clarify if they want later. We do have Connor has a raised hand, so Connor, you've got it.
Thank you, Megan. Yeah, so I only learned about this right before the holidays, and when I saw one of the lawn signs, and I think they're really well designed. I would say that if we print more of them, I would suggest we link to a survey or put a QR code on that. That would take people right to the petition. But I don't know that, I think it's fantastic that we have over 1,500 signatures. Is it going to make a difference to the P&Z board if we hit 2,000? Or is that kind of arbitrary at this point? What we really actually need is for everybody in this neighborhood to know that this is happening. And I live over by Stu Leonard's, and I'm out every day. I've got a daughter. Kids are swarming these streets. Strawberry Hill Avenue is swarmed with kids.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we've communicated yet the extent to which these kids' lives are going to be severely negatively impacted. The sports fields, the playgrounds, they're walking to school. Little kids walking to school, teenagers riding their bikes. They're going to get mowed down by these trucks. It's a matter of time before they end up under the wheels of one of these horrible things. Just with the volume, it's a statistical certainty. And I I think that what we're missing now is the intimidation factor for the P&Z board, as in when there's a public hearing and a crowd shows up, they feel that. They don't feel that when you don't even get to go on camera, and they can mute you and they can tell you that you don't get to talk again. So I know Milligan spent a lot of money on legal defense, and they muted him on the last meeting. So I'm actually really worried that that's what they're going to try to do here.
Well, I think, first of all, just add this for Jason Milligan and Wall Street is kind of a unique situation.
Sure.
And because there actually is legal litigation that's ongoing there with the city as a litigant, I think that had some of it to do with it, something to do with that. In terms of the communication, though, because I know you came in a little bit late to the to this whole thing, though, Connor, is the amount of letters that have gone in referencing exactly what you're talking about with the kids on bikes and walking and going to the park and dog walkers. The fact that people didn't understand that Strawberry Hill is a federally designated safe routes to school road. That, you know, we invested millions in trying to do even the limited improvements that were done there. We have been slamming them with that. And we're also getting together the statistics that are pretty startling on the percentages of fatalities that have to do with trucks, with pedestrians and bicyclists. So, and in some of the letters and in our communication, we've been terming that whole situation as a tragedy waiting to happen. I mean, it just is. That's we can't have that volume with that speed with, you know, 80,000 pound tractor trailers going at 35 miles per hour. So we really are focused on that, and people have been hammering in on it, and we'll continue to do that. On the flip side, it's been really disappointing. The silence of the Board of Education and the schools and the PTOs and the governance councils has been deafening. So we've had a little bit of interaction. One of the Board of Ed members fought to get it onto a committee agenda. I don't know if Diana Carpio is on this call tonight. But she was pushing from that side because not just the danger on Strawberry Hill with those schools, and but also the health implications. Childhood asthma rates in our school system in Norwalk, and you know, so there's some pockets of it that are, you know, kind of off the charts. We think also that the applicant pulled back the primary route of Strawberry Avenue and put it to East Avenue because of the public outcry of Strawberry Hill with the schools and the kids. But they didn't realize that a lot of kids walk from the southern part of Strawberry Hill to go to school south of Norden Place. You have, you know, a lot of traffic there and a lot of bikers there as well. So we're definitely continuing to hone in on it. I am concerned. We're concerned, and I'm concerned personally, and ENNA is like how many people still aren't aware of this. So I do think that the signs have worked well. They're hard to read if you're just driving by quick and you can't stop at a corner, and they're hard to read at night. I like the idea of a QR code so if somebody can just hop out. But we're also relying on neighbors, and when you do find out about it, to spread the word, kind of like a street rep, to spread the word to other people. And yes, I do believe with the petition and the letters, they make an impact. And I'll tell you partly why. When the zoning commission just approved that whole POCO development, the nickname for the Wall Street Place development, one of the arguments that some of them were talking about and elected officials were talking about was the fact that there wasn't a whole lot of people that spoke out against it. Well, if you're going to use the argument that you're approving it because you didn't hear from a lot of people, then you better use the argument that when you hear from 200 or 300 people in one night, and, you know, 400 letters and 2,000 petition writers, then you better use that argument to say people don't want it and we need to deny this. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And we have it on the record as them having used that as part of the justification in the Wall Street, the POCO decisions.
I absolutely agree. I think that there is an incredible amount of evidence here that this is an absolutely terrible idea. Yeah. And that the people proposing it don't think of us as real people, clearly.
Yeah. It's true. They don't live here. They're not, and they're not the operators, Connor. Don't forget, because they're not the tenants. So they literally
they're absentee proprietors, essentially.
Yeah.
I have one quick thought. I don't want to monopolize any more time than I have. I was thinking if we did want to show how many people actually support this, I know that I think there have been rallies in the past. I'm trying to still kind of get my bearings with that, but I would advocate for doing something on a weekend where the maximum amount of people can attend and doing it socially distanced, which I think ironically, so many things work against us right now. Even evangelizing this door to door, nobody wants to talk to somebody that comes to their door right now.
Exactly.
So, but if we spread out, if we're spread out because we're socially distanced, we actually occupy more territory, and we could actually form a chain along one of these routes with signs. I think that would make a huge splash.
I love that idea, because our first rally we think was really successful, but we picked a small spot because we didn't think a lot of people would show up. And to our surprise, I think we got 70 people, and we were a little too close for comfort there on East Avenue. But it was well attended, and I said at the beginning too. Now, depending on how far out into February this gets moved, we can certainly plan to do another Saturday morning. That seemed to work good for people. Do a Saturday morning one, and I like the idea. Then, if we're going to spread out, just what you said, then like to have a line like on the route with people holding signs, but very visual. And if we and even at that point, then we don't have to do a lot of communication with bullhorns or anything. We'll just have the press there and have a couple of speakers. But the visual of having people lined up from one end to the other would be very impactful.
With the traffic in the background, because there's gridlock there all the time anyway. Right.
Yeah. And that was a good thing too about our rally on that Saturday morning. We happened to do it the Saturday morning before Christmas. So a lot of people were on East Avenue because it was the last shopping day. So there was a lot of cars going back and forth, and then some people honking and stuff. But we'll have to. Okay. And then because we're a volunteer board, and it's just like so much still to do. So whenever somebody throws something out there, we don't want to feel obligated. But if you're willing to throw your name in the hat to help to organize that, that'd be great. Or if you know someone on your street that could help us, we definitely need volunteers to help.
I've never done anything like this before, but I'm more than happy to do everything I can.
Okay.
I probably will need maybe some help as far as how you go about doing something like this.
Okay, you come to the right place. We can help you do that. In terms of all the publicity and press and communicating with all those guys, we do that right through ENNA. But there's lots of stuff to do to organize, just in terms of getting the word out to people. Even people, the homemade signs are really impactful too. People making something, or even you have people who can have kids come out and the kids hold up signs too. So it doesn't have to be expensive, and it doesn't have to be overly time consuming, but it can be very impactful. Thanks, Connor.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. We'll do I'm willing to stay as late as people want to ask questions, because we don't have anything else on the agenda. Just to say our next meeting is February, and we don't know if our February 15th meeting will actually be before or after the hearing until they give us the hearing date. Megan?
There's a couple of questions in the chat. The first one is, even though the applicant has said that the distribution is business to business, what precludes the applicant from catering to business to consumer in the future, for example, Amazon?
Okay, great question. So because of the nature of the application, it's a special permit, and the special permit use that's there that allowed them to apply for to begin with is for warehouse / wholesale distribution. And even the applicant's attorney will tell you, if they were to suddenly switch to warehouse to consumer, they literally have to come back and reapply all over again and have a change there to have that added as a special permit. It's not saying that it wouldn't be costly and long and involved for them to do it, but they have, I think I mentioned this to you before, their third partner are like billionaire investors in these types of underutilized developments. So money seems to be no object, but they could not do it without starting an entire new process and then having that use even added as a special permit. And I think ENNA would just really, there'd be like a revolution. The fact that the fact that we're even sitting here tonight, all you guys, and having to deal with this, and months and months and months of all of our personal time, is because our zoning commission and zoning staff never took the special permit use out of the zoning regulations to begin with. And so we'll say this now because it's going to come up in February. On our February agenda, we are going to be looking for volunteers from our ENNA community in East Norwalk who are willing to work as a committee and comb through the zoning regulations, which are under review now. Look for every zone that is in East Norwalk, our business zone, residential zone, industrial zone, commercial zones, for every special permit use, and identify anything that we think would be objectionable. Because if we get it out as if we get it eliminated as a special permit use on the front end, the chances of us having to go through this again are slim to none, or at least it makes the applicants' efforts to try to get something added as a special use really painful, really long, and really expensive. So going forward, it's not just defeating this, and this is what our goal is. It's also how do we guard against, this happening again? Because as community advocates through all the neighborhood associations in East Norwalk, we've been playing whack-a-mole now for 10 years. We just can't keep ahead of the stuff that's coming to bite us because of the way these regulations are written and how poorly the zoning codes protect our neighborhoods, all the neighborhoods, not just, residential areas. Sorry, I went out a little.
All right.
Sarah.
There's a raised hand from Don. Don, I'll ask you to unmute.
Yep. All set. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I just wanted to share an observation. I live over in the Sasqua Hills area and have talked about this project with a number of neighbors and folks in the community that stretches from Sasqua Hills out to Saugatuck Shores. And the sort of common response has been, oh, well, it's not really going to affect us because the trucks can't get under the railroad bridges. And so they view the railroad bridges at Saugatuck and down in East Norwalk as the sort of barriers to truck traffic. Mm-hmm. And what they're not taking into account, which I've explained to them, is that, the big trucks go into a distribution center and the little trucks come out. At least that's my view. And that increases the traffic volume to me, I don't know, 3 times, 5 times, 7 times, mm-hmm. Because what comes in a big truck takes a lot more little trucks to deliver.
Absolutely.
And I've been kind of taken back that that's the response from these folks. So I would suggest that be a communication point. I know it was a communication point in the letter that I wrote to the mayor and to the zoning board, but it's big trucks come in, little trucks come out, and that just compounds the traffic patterns, absolutely. The hazards for kids, sidewalks, bicyclists, all that other stuff.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Thanks, Don. And thanks for bringing it up because we're well aware of it. It actually killed me the first time that I heard that. I just couldn't believe that attitude. One, because, we're all one community, and what impacts, anything here, it's a small enough community, it's going to impact all of us. But you hit the nail on the head. And I think Farhan has been trying to beat this drum too, along with another counterpart over in Westport. And some people who are familiar with Saugatuck Shores. So the issue there too is that not just the fact that these smaller trucks are absolutely going to be using, coming down Winfield and everything, because they're going to do, first of all, that's the GPS route, and second of all, it's the path of least resistance. But anybody who lives in those areas that travels through East Norwalk to either get to South Norwalk or to the highway is going to be tremendously impacted by this because of the gridlock and the traffic that this is going to, create between box trucks, vans, tractor trailers, and just the amount of regular passenger cars that are going to be in and out of that. And of course, the air pollution is going to impact everyone. So if it's a matter of communication of just, getting people to understand, about those number of trucks and why that is the route that they're going to be coming. I don't know, Farhan, if you have any, within your email list or within your group or your own distribution over there, if there's, people, if we can get an email out to them and explain what Don just said, I'm happy to do that. We've been trying to illustrate that in all our stuff.
I mean, the folks that we've solicited basically have come to us by placing a flyer in their mailboxes, right? And so, the people who have responded favorably are all very concerned. Obviously, the people who have failed to respond either, threw it out as junk mail or don't care or whatever other reason that may be. I would say that, the letter or the flyer really articulated the how this would affect those people living what I would call along the Winfield corridor from East Avenue down to, Westport. At the end of the day, some people are concerned about different things, right? Whether it's the environment, traffic, noise, etc. At the end of the day, from my point of view, as I've said before, we're solely focused on the legal side of things. Yes, having more people is obviously good. It certainly persuades the zoning commission. But at the end of the day, the other side is going to say all of these things, as I said before, quite sarcastically, are heartfelt sentiments, right? Show me evidence. Show me evidence that can withstand an appeals court review. And that essentially, from my point of view, has to be the end result of all this, which is that we have to present facts on the ground that they're going to withstand appeal by the applicant. Because, this applicant has a lot of money, invested in this project, right? At least $1 million. And that's, I think that's conservative. So they're not going to simply walk away if the zoning commission votes against them. Because what the appeals court is going to want to see is that there are facts that sort of reasonable people could agree where it didn't meet the standard. Otherwise, it's arbitrary and capricious, and the appeals court rules against you.
Yep. Nope, I agree. I mean, the real crux of it is making sure there's a defensible denial. And that's where all the expert stuff comes in. And, at least in having the leeway, though, to get it denied to begin with, so that they then have to come back and, perhaps pursue legal avenue against it. It still comes from really, I think, the power of the people as well. And I think that's where their attorney kind of missed the boat, where she basically said it's irrelevant, although it's heartfelt, because we're not experts. Because the commissioners are allowed to take in, as expert, people's personal observations. This is not a person from Texas saying, I've heard that the traffic on, in East Norwalk is a nightmare trying to get to the highway. These are people who live this every single day. So I think it is, a combination of the two. But clearly we still have more work to do in terms of the communications. And I think someone was supposed to be reaching out to the whoever the president is of Saugatuck Shores. So we'll have to see where that sentiment is coming from. But we really need all hands on deck and all people committed to understanding why this is a bad thing and what they personally have to do to, be a part of fighting it, either funding. The two big things really are either, funding the legal and the expert case, which is the crux to, protect us in a denial, and the pressure that gets put upon the zoning commission and our elected officials. They have to have the pressure from the community to say, you cannot let this thing go through. And then at some point, there has to be accountability. I'll just throw it out there that, we have the good fortune of this being an election year in Norwalk. So for whatever that may add to the ammunition, it's something worthwhile to keep in mind, to keep the pressure on the elected guys, even if they're not a part of making the decision there. We have some more, Megan, or?
I think that's about it. People are suggesting a protest or something. They're making a suggestion. How about next Saturday in front of Norden? Keep it front and center. And someone else asked, has there been any effort to mobilize the area's small businesses, delis, churches, any place that depend on neighbors to patronize, then will be hurt by this proposal just as well?
So the next Saturday, two things on that. One, we need to have time so that we can pull it together. And we also wanted it to be in a very visible place. So not just visible where we can tell the local press to show up and they can see it, but we want it visible to the community as well. And if it's at Norden where the parcel is, that's not as visible as it is, say, on Strawberry Hill or, one of the main roads, or even over on Winfield. So I'm not sure if we have time to do that or not, but possibly the next one. I think I also heard maybe snow next weekend too. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. Another two of the things also that we're looking at though is we want to, instead of just using illustrations and pictures from the website and from the Department of Transportation that shows the scale of a tractor trailer compared to a car, compared to a bike, compared to someone with a stroller, we want to get some real images of actual tractor trailers and those people standing next to it. There's somebody like maybe with a dog on a leash as well. Because that's powerful impact in terms of showing them visually what these tractor trailers are going to be like on our road. And so we may be coordinating that at one of the rest stops over the next couple of weekends, but it's hard to, again, it's not easy to get these things together. And then the other thing is we're going to look to try to get some animation done. So that it's visual for the commission to see what the impact would be of these tractor trailers on East Avenue, and if possible, we're still looking to see if we can secure one or two tractor trailer drivers that we can pay that can actually drive on East Avenue to Fitch to Strawberry Hill, so that we can illustrate what that would be like and what the turning radiuses are and what they have to do to maneuver around cars that are already in the opposing lanes. And if we can do that, then it would be good to have people come out for that too. So some of the stuff, as we thought that this hearing was actually next week, as we were trying to develop it and move forward with it, we just had to let it go because we just don't have enough time, especially when we don't have, a whole lot of volunteers that are helping us. But if this thing actually goes to the middle of February, then we do have enough time to get some of this stuff going. Anyone who wants to volunteer to help with us, just email us, please. You can do that offline and just email us at info, just like information, info@eastnorwalk.org. And that'll come straight to us, to the board. That would be helpful. Again, the next meeting is February 15th. We'll know if that's before or after the hearing. And just to announce again, thank you to Charles D. Bisegli. Our new website is up and running. There's some pages that are still under construction as we're rebuilding it from content that we're pulling over from the old site. But you can visit the new website at eastnorwalk.org. And then, of course, we're on all the social media as well, Facebook, Instagram, and Nextdoor. And you can keep up to date there. The most important thing to do is if you're on here, maybe somebody sent you a link. Make sure that you're on our email list, because that will be the way to keep, up to date, up to the minute, especially if things may start happening very quickly. Make sure you're on the email list. We try to do an email every weekend, of course, and then if there's something urgent, we'll send an email during the week.